Coming up on Market to Market. By choosing not to rule, the Supreme Court paves the way for increased blends of ethanol.
The bill as amended is passed.
The Senate approves a measure creating a path to citizenship for 11 million undocumented immigrants. And the Agriculture Department's latest stocks and acreage reports move the markets. Those stories and market analysis with Jamie Kawaki next.
Funding for Market to Market is provided by DuPont Pioneer, working with growers to match the right product to the right acre. Science with service, delivering success. This is the Friday, June 28th edition of Market to Market, the weekly journal of rural America.
Hello, I'm Mike Pearson. Continued recovery in the housing sector and an improving labor market pushed consumer sentiment this month to a 5-year high. According to the Commerce Department, sales of new homes rose in May at their fastest pace in 5 years. The median home price of a new home sold last month was nearly $264,000, up 3.3% from a year ago. U.S. employers added a respectable 175,000 jobs last month, while the national unemployment rate has fallen 0.6% in the past year. And the Conference Board, a private research group, reports its Consumer Confidence Index soared to 81.4 in June, in its best showing since January of 2008. Businesses monitor consumer confidence closely because consumer spending accounts for nearly 70% of U.S. economic activity. But confidence also plays a pivotal role in product development. And in a case pitting renewable fuels producers against big oil, the highest court in the land paved the way this week for increased blends of ethanol. The Supreme Court refused to consider a challenge by the American Petroleum Institute that would have blocked sales of E15, a blend of gasoline that is 15% ethanol.
Well, we were disappointed by that decision. I mean, we're in a position where we can't even argue the merits of this premature decision. So we are assessing our legal options right now and determining what our next steps will be.
By rejecting the case, the High Court essentially upheld a lower court ruling allowing the increased blend. This week's action was just the latest fight in a long-running battle over the Renewable Fuel Standard, or RFS.
This is a real clear battle for the barrel. Okay, the oil companies want you to buy petroleum. We want consumers to have the choice of higher blends. No one is requiring you to buy E15. No one's requiring you to buy even higher blends like E85. But we think it's good for consumers to have those options.
Approved by Congress in 2005, the RFS requires that the amount of ethanol blended with gasoline increase each year. Its goal is to reduce the nation's reliance on fossil fuels and decrease greenhouse gas emissions. Supporters of the Renewable Fuel Standard claim the law has created more than 400,000 jobs and has played an important role in revitalizing rural communities. Proponents also say blended fuels have helped to reduce the U.S. dependence on foreign oil by more than 30% and have benefited the environment by reducing carbon emissions.
Big oil cannot compete with ethanol blends on either price or performance. So, they're not scared that you're going to put E15 in your car and your car's not going to work. They're scared to death that you'll find out that you can put E15 in your car and it will work just fine, because they cannot compete on price and performance.
The Renewable Fuel Standard sets a 16.5 billion gallon production requirement for ethanol and other fuel alternatives this year, up more than 1 billion gallons from last year. By 2022, the law requires an increase to 36 billion gallons, more than double this year's production. Opponents, however, say the RFS mandate puts politics ahead of science.
Well, because the EPA made this decision prematurely. We've had additional research come out that shows that millions of vehicles in this country that are on the road today are at risk for engine damage and fuel pump damage if they use E15.
Ethanol supporters say E15 is cheaper than conventional gasoline and offers similar gas mileage as E10. And after years of delays, the Supreme Court's decision this week will allow consumers to make their own decisions at the pump.